Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. I am Sean Butler. We just finished the game. It's 2-1 to Tottenham. An interesting game. I wouldn't say it was the most exciting game, if I'm entirely honest. I was quite bored throughout it, and you'd think that it was a dead rubber, an end-of-season dead rubber game, but it actually wasn't. Burnley were fighting for their lives, right? They had to win today to stay up, or to have a chance of staying up. They didn't manage to do that. Tottenham still with much to play for. You're obviously Europa League, but if we win today and other permutations of other results elsewhere went our way, the top four thing isn't done. It still isn't done. We did get the job done. Burnley have gone down. Sad for them. I like them. I like the way that company set themselves up today. They didn't come here and do low block, but they got the early goal. They got the early goal, and after that, it became a frustrating affair for Tottenham to break them down. I'm going to sit here and say to you right now, I think today kind of demonstrated much of the problems that Tottenham have to figure out in the transfer window to go again next season. Today, we were the better team, clearly the better team across the park, but final decision making was the problem. It was the consistent theme of the 95 minutes of football, every single time, bar a couple, that we got ourselves into great positions. Either the final ball was just awful, the final decision was just awful, or it wasn't a bad ball, but it was into the wrong area, and there was a better area to place it into. And to me, again, this isn't Angeball, this isn't an Angeball issue, this is a personnel issue or a form issue. I'm not sure. Maybe some of these players are good enough, but just not kind of on it right now. Some of them certainly I don't think are, but if we go again in this summer and rebuild our forward line, then I think that good things can happen. It was a dominant performance in every area but the final third. And looking at the individuals, you know, Kulusevski, I'll start with him. Frustrating. We spent all season watching him on the right-hand side, cutting in on his left, because his left is his favoured foot. And everyone that I know has been crying out for the chance to see him on the left, because if he's so one-footed, or in his mind he's so one-footed, then putting him on the left, surely that will mean that he's more inclined to get to the byline, see what he's like at the byline. We saw him in the first half. He cuts in on his right. I mean, you can't make it up. You can't make it up. I thought he had a poor game, if I'm honest, Kulusevski. He wasn't at it. I think he was trying his best, but there's something going on with his confidence and his decision-making. It's not good enough. James Maddison, a bit more movement today, a bit more freedom to move around. I thought he had good moments, lovely passes at times into the channels, but you know, ultimately, for me, he's still just not quite at it. And this is one of the games of the season where I was curious to see how company was going to set Burnley up. Were they going to play a little bit more pragmatic and just try and sneak a win? Obviously not. That's not their style, and I appreciate and respect it. And it's going to be sad to see them, because they obviously are going to go down to the Championship. But for me, there was a bit more space. But even then, James Maddison, when he did get into the final third, when he did have the ball in those dangerous areas, there was a lot of kind of confusion, overstepping, too many touches, just, again, a confidence block. Something's not quite right, and it's frustrating. Brennan Johnson today, so many chances, so many times on the ball, so many moments where he gets to the byline and he whips the ball in. Does he do a good enough job? Look, I don't think he had a bad game. I think he had a good game in terms of opportunity, but I've mentioned this before with him. All of the trickery, all of the possession, all of the chances come to nothing if your final decision isn't quite at it. And for me, once again, most of the time today, he wasn't quite at it. Pedro Porro, one of the best performances I've seen from him in a long time. He handled Burnley's left-hand side attack with aplomb, in my opinion. I don't really remember him making any mistakes defensively. Getting forward, we got to see Pedro Porro doing what he can do, and we have to start asking questions around whether or not he's limited at the right-back spot. Are we asking too much of him to get back when he's got the ability to get forward? Is there the opportunity, the kind of requirement, the responsibility for us to consider him in that second 8 spot, to allow him to get forward and put someone into the right back situation that can do a bit more? Because when Pedro Porro's on the ball, I think he's one of the cleanest strikers of the ball at our football club. Really, really, really impressive. His goal today was absolutely sensational. At the back, Christian Romero and Micky Van De Ven, delectable as always, doing their thing. Romero should have had a goal, you know, furious with himself for missing that header, I think, late on, but a very commanding performance. But I'm not going to waste too much time talking about commanding performances. I'm going to talk about domination, and Micky Van De Ven is, in my opinion, the most exciting footballer in the Premier League right now. I know people are going to talk about Cole Palmers and players that are more offensive naturally, but this guy is the most watchable centre-back in world football. He's got unbelievable pace. not just that. Pace is one thing. You put Usain Bolt into a team of football. He plays a little bit of football. He ain't doing what Micky Van De Ven can do. This guy gets the ball back every single time that he chases after it. He is sensational with his positional assertiveness. He is phenomenal with his pace and his recovery. But you know what? We're seeing a different side to Micky Van De Ven. When you put him at the top end of the pitch, when he somehow manages to find himself with the ball like he did today for that goal, unbelievable. The goal that was ruled out against Arsenal, in my opinion, was a hairline fracture away from being onside, and I still don't know if it was or wasn't. And he should have been rewarded with a goal for that performance, on that day. Today, that goal that he scored was off the chain, and any striker, any midfielder, any attacking midfielder or winger would be getting all the plaudits if they were able to find the bottom locker like he did. But it was Micky Van De Ven. I don't know how much money this guy is worth, but at his age, with his physical dominance, with his assets in his locker at the defence and at the top end of the pitch, he's capable of doing that. I genuinely think if we can keep this guy healthy, we have a world-class player on our hands. Sonny today, again, a better performance from Sonny. I don't really know how to kind of to judge the front three, because on one hand they had lots of time, lots of possession, lots of opportunities, but on the other hand there wasn't enough output, and that to me is the takeaway from today. All of them, lots of chances, lots of opportunities, not enough output. And if you don't have the output, guys, then it doesn't matter. We got the job done in the end. We take the 3 points, we march on. We've got Villa on Saturday. If something happens tomorrow or on Monday between Liverpool and Villa, if Liverpool put Villa to the sword at Villa Park, we don't know if it will or won't happen, but if it does, if Liverpool beat Villa, and in an ideal world, if United can get something from the Arsenal game, then we can come back here on Tuesday and root for Tottenham to beat to beat City, and it still will allow City to win the league, and Tottenham can finish fourth in a world where Villa drop points to Palace, and that's a likely scenario right now with Palace's form, and Tottenham should be able to go on to Sheffield United. I know it's a lot of permutations and a lot of connotations and a lot of if, buts and maybes, I know, but obviously it can happen, and I want Tottenham to finish the season as strong as possible. I want the performances to get better. Today's performance was better. It was better in every department apart from clinical finishing, and it was the same sort of story against Arsenal, guys. If you think back to the Arsenal game, I think Arsenal were weaker than us in every performance than clinical finishing. And if you're taking on one of the worst teams in the league and one of the best teams in the league, and the overarching narrative is we are the better team, but we can't handle the finishing touches on umpteen moves, then this is not an Angeball problem, this is a personnel problem, and the personnel either are going through they're either the right guys and they're in bad form, or they're the wrong guys and things need to change. But for me, there was enough evidence today in an otherwise boring game. I thought it was a relatively boring game. There was enough evidence for me, and there's been enough evidence with our on-the-ball stuff at times over the last 2 months of frustrating results and kind of volatility amongst the fan base. There's enough evidence for me to believe that you have to give Ange what he needs. You have to back the guy. Let him rebuild the front line. I think we all know the front line isn't quite right. Is it Kulusevski that's not going to do it? Is it Sonny? Is it Richie? Is it Brennan Johnson? How many more players can we bring in? Who needs to go to make room? I just think if we can find a way to get that front line right and get them making more use, getting more juice from the squeeze. At the moment, there's a lot of squeezing, not a lot of juice. And if you can just find that mechanism, that fluidity that can result in better output, then I don't think we're far off. I really don't. And I'm not saying this because we've beaten Burnley, a team that's getting relegated. I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass. I'm really not. I'm just saying that I'm seeing the same things against teams that are at the bottom end and teams at the top end. We're creating chances, we're just not putting them away. And if we can figure out the final piece of the puzzle, and it's the hardest piece of the puzzle because scoring goals is the hardest part in football, but if we can do it, then we can do things with this manager, with most of this team, with this system. Shouts out to players like Van De Ven. In terms of the midfield, just quickly, I haven't spoken about them. Bissouma, a good start to the game, was very key in certain moments. Pape Matar Sarr as well, I thought he had an okay game. I didn't see the Burnley goal yet, I haven't seen the replay, so I know there was a few mistakes, missed tackles, so I don't know who was responsible for that. But yeah, it wasn't the most commanding performance from the DMs in that particular role, and that's why I do think we're still massively missing at 6, and that's why I'm talking about the idea of is someone like a Pedro Porro a better fit in a role where he can be more involved on the ball and not have to necessarily spend too much of his time getting back and exhausting himself, because exhaustion on a player that is technically gifted can kind of edge away, like nip away at the conversion friendliness of their performances later on in games. But once again, Tottenham finish a game stronger than the opposition. This idea that this system is exhausting, I don't necessarily believe in it. I think there's a lot of work for certain players, but in most of the games that we play, we start badly and we finish strong. So if our system is exhausting on our players, then it must be terribly exhausting on opposition. Next season, we're going to have to play an extra, well, at least 8 games, but hopefully 15, 16, 17, 18 more games. We're going to need strength in depth. We're going to need a lot of work done. Guys, I'm walking away from today. Look, it's a lovely day. Maybe I'm in good spirits, but I don't think the game was fantastic. But for me, I thought some of the performances were exemplary, and we should focus on the positives. And like I say, if we can fix the conversions, we can fix the mistakes at the top end of the pitch. And again, it might be a wavelength thing. Last thing I'll say, in the first 20 minutes of the game, I saw Romero decide to move into the 9. Right, he went up the pitch again, like he did in a game recently. In that moment, Ollie Skip saw that and sat back, became a sort of second centre-back or a left-back. So did Pedro Porro. It didn't last for long, but it lasted for a 10-minute period or a 5-minute period where Romero stayed up the pitch and was playing that kind of forward role. That's not by design. As far as I can tell, that's not by design. That was not through instruction. That's Romero taking it upon himself to move into an advanced role. And the other players reacted. And it didn't take 2 minutes for them to figure it out. It was instantaneous. Shout out to Ollie Skip. I thought he was pretty good today in the left-back role. I thought he got forward as well and did some good bits. I like him. I like his work rate. I like his effort. I like his willingness to be a part of the team. And maybe he is someone that Ange is going to buy into, and because of his homegrown, maybe he'll be part of the squad next year. I don't necessarily think he's ever going to make it for Tottenham as a mainstay part of the regular first 11, but I thought he put in a good shift. But I really appreciated the fact that him and Pedro Porro immediately observed that Romero taking the ball by the horns and going up, those two drop back. And that to me is the things I've been speaking about. Fluid rigidity requires, the fluid part requires the players to be on the same wavelength as each other, to recognise other people's crazy ideas and other people to kind of fill in the gaps and to react to it. And I thought it was interesting that the obvious observation of that is that we're getting better at that side of the game. So for me, lots of positives today. Yes, it was frustrating. Yes, it was boring. Yes, you can focus on the fact that we didn't put enough chances away. If you want to go on that path, that's fine. Let me know how you feel about this. For me, I'm going to sit here and say we're in Europe. We've still got an outside chance of more. Micky Van De Ven, absolutely phenomenal. We need better in better positions. We need more from some. Others, I think we can look at and think of the future and what we're building here. And I don't think that it's Ange's system that's the problem. I think that if you focus on the recent performances and recognise that going forward, when we have the ball, we can create. We just need better decisions in the final moments from the front people. And if they can do that, if we can figure that out, then Tottenham will be just fine. Like, subscribe and comment, guys. And as always, bye-bye.